Hi, and welcome to Good Grief. I'm your host and guide, Dr. Michelle Peticolas. The subject today is global loss. We're going to take a look at what the difference is between global loss and challenges and personal loss, and how you can deal with either, how they're similar, how they're different. But before we begin, I would like to share a little bit about myself. I have a PhD in sociology and psychology from Indiana University. I worked in grief in group homes in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Fort Defiance, Arizona, working with children from broken homes, from disorganized homes that were dealing with their own losses, helping these teenagers to find a new way to live their lives. I joined hospice as a volunteer and helped people at the bedside, and then with people around grief and loss, initially calling people on the phone, and then leading a partner loss support group. I worked with hospice for over 10 years. At the same time, I produced a documentary film series, Secrets of Life and Death, an award-winning film series that is screened in universities and hospices all over the United States, Canada, and Australia. After hospice, I started my own grief support coaching program, where I help people to navigate the challenges of loss or any kind of grief and use it as a gateway to creating a new life after loss. I'm a best-selling author, as well as an award-winning filmmaker, and I am an international speaker. My books include Breaking Barriers, Step into Your Brilliance, and Animal Legacies. But it's not always been this way. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and we were taught not to share our feelings, not to allow our feelings, to repress them, to tamp them down, to replace our losses, to run away. And this is what I did for many years. I was not very in touch with my feelings, because when you tamp down your feelings, you don't feel any feelings. And I might have gone on like this forever, shuttered and shut down. But two big things happened in my life. First, my husband left me for another woman. I was devastated. I was confused. I thought I had been the good girl. I thought I had done everything I was supposed to do. And I was abandoned. I joined a spiritual community, which changed my whole perspective of the way in which the world works. And it taught me tools and skills to allow me to allow my feelings at a different level, to not see things so terribly. But the big thing that happened to me was a number of years later when both my parents died, 6 months apart. First my father and then my mother. And this is what brought my feelings truly online, because the immensity of my parental loss was so huge that I could not contain my emotions. It was like being hit by a tsunami. And I tried to hold them back, but eventually my back went out and it brought me to my knees. I cried. And this allowed me to grieve the loss of my first husband as well, and to clear out all the old emotions, because it turns out that all our griefs are connected. And this led me to produce my documentary film series, because I was curious about this experience that woke me up, that had such an impact on me. And the film series was Secrets of Life and Death, which helped people to wake up to this wonderful, this amazing life that is limited and that we need to step up and to really experience it completely. And that's what I do. That is what I do with my clients, is help them to not only navigate their grief, but also to live their life more fully. But enough about me. Let's talk about global grief. Global grief is when we have a loss that impacts us on the whole world, that we all are impacted. And so you almost feel this energetic impact of the loss because we are all connected, all of us, because we're all one. For example, the pandemic. The pandemic affected the whole world. We all experienced the closing of borders, the sheltering in place, the wearing of masks, not going out or only going out for necessities. In some communities, they actually were limited by how much they were allowed to go out. And thousands of people died. And we were not able to grieve the loss of those people because we were sheltering in place. There's also wars. There was, of course, World War II, but the current wars, like the war in Palestine and Israel, and the war between Russia and the Ukraine, which the United States is involved in. So we are involved. And when we see the inhumanity, when we see the suffering, we feel responsible. And so there is grief there. And then there are, well, I have wildfires here, but I'm talking about climate change, where in some locations we have drought, in other locations we have flooding, and in others we have earthquakes or we have tornadoes. We are experiencing unprecedented climate changes. And this is influencing and affecting the whole world. And we're all struggling to deal with this loss, with this change, with this uncertainty. And then, of course, I'm sure you all remember 9/11, when the United States no longer was the superpower it thought it was, that we were vulnerable, that the heroes had clay feet. And so this impacted us both personally and on a global level. So what do we do when we have global loss? Well, it's actually very similar to personal loss in that you need to allow your feelings. You need to release your feelings, all of your feelings, anger, surprise, fear, sadness, because otherwise they continue. They don't go away. So this is step number one. When you allow your feelings, you actually start to change your grief. Second, social support. We are social species. We need each other. We humans are wired to bond. So we need each other all the time, but particularly around loss, so that if we are all struggling together with loss, we can support each other. And if it's just you personally, you need other people to reassure your body that you're safe, that you're okay, that people care about you, that you can make those connections, that you can feel a hug. And then finally, you need to master your mind, because when you're in that grief, your mind can often tell you that life is hopeless, that you're worthless, that there's nothing you can do. And this leaves you in a state of victimhood. So you need to master your mind. You need to change the way in which you think about things. So let's look at allowing emotions for a second. Grief is a survival response to loss. That is, the human being experiences the loss of a human relationship as a threat to its survival. And as a result, the body releases a cascade of chemicals into your body to prepare it to fight, flee, or freeze. But in grief, there's nothing to fight. There's nowhere to flee. And freezing is probably what a lot of people do. But eventually, you need to move on. And in normal threat to survival, you're able to use one of these tools to release the emotions, to release the chemicals in your body. But in order to do that here, you need to release your emotions. And that helps to dispel and release the chemicals that will otherwise actually damage your body. Social support. It's really important to share your story, to be witnessed, to receive hugs. And if you can do a community activity, that is really helpful, where everybody participates together. That's the reason we have memorial services, so that we can share our stories, that we can create closure, that we can support each other. When 9/11 happened, we were all grieving. This was an opportunity for this country to come together. But instead, we focused on the economy. And our president came on TV and told us to go back to restaurants and to go back to the theaters and to save the economy. So instead of using this as an opportunity to really grow, we just went back to tamping down our feelings and being good citizens. Once you have done this, when you do this, you want to do this safely. You want to do safe sharing. So you want to make sure that where you're doing your communal grieving, you want to reassure each other that what is shared stays there, that you're an active listener, that you listen to each other with love and care so that that person feels supported. And that when it's your turn, you participate fully and share your story without reservation. And finally, you need to be respectful, kind, and without judgment so that people feel safe and feel okay to share their feelings. Mindset. How do you change your mindset? Well, you want to be aware of your current mindset. If it is disempowering, if it makes you feel bad, if you feel at a loss, hopeless, no good, give up, you want to change that mindset because it doesn't do you any good. It holds you back. It prevents you from making a difference. So you want to shift to positive or empowering thoughts. So let's practice this a moment. What kind of empowering thoughts can you have about global warming or the war or any of the things that we are facing globally right now? Think a moment. You need to first allow your feelings. You need to shift. You need to be aware of your thoughts, and then you need to shift them. So how can they be more positive? One of the things I do is I take a walk in nature and remember that the world is still here and that it's still beautiful. Now, if you're in a war zone, that's a different story. But if you're still alive, you can see the sky. You can be with other people. And this is a step. I also find that following a spiritual practice is hugely helpful. Breathing deeply and releasing the emotions. And to see this time as temporary, as a time of transformation, like the butterfly. The caterpillar enters a cocoon and has to allow its body to disintegrate into liquid in order to provide the building blocks for this glorious creature, the butterfly. We are in a cocoon right now. We are in a period of transition. How do I know? Well, astrology tells us that we are in a time of huge change, and the problems we are seeing right now are just the last fighting of the old guard. I try to look at it this way. And also, as my yoga teacher often said, you are a spiritual being having a human adventure. So this is part of the adventure. What can you do to support other people in the world without burning yourself out? I do workshops like this. What can you do? Can you pray? Can you offer help? When you offer help that is uplifting for you, that you get something in return, that you're not just giving and giving. So that's the main part of my presentation. It doesn't really tell you how to allow your feelings. So I want to alert you to a graphic guide on how to grieve that I have on my website. You can look on my website, or you can go to griefessentials.com and fill in your name and email. And not only will you get this charming graphic guide, but you will get a series of emails that will help you, will show you, will explain to you how to allow your emotions and release them. And then if that's not enough, if you need more support than that, I invite you to reach out to me and have a complimentary introductory conversation with me. The regular investment for an hour of my time is $700. But because you showed up today, because you are here listening to this video, I want to offer you a complimentary introductory conversation. We'll take a look at where you are right now, where you want to be, and what's blocking you. And you will leave with some tools that you can use right away. So meet with Dr. Michelle, and the discount code COMP1. So that's our presentation for today. What we shared was the difference between global grief and loss, and personal grief and loss. And that in fact, the way to address grief is pretty much the same way, whether it's global or it's individual. You need to allow your feelings, you need to get social support, and you need to work on your mindset so that you don't get stuck in a loop of feeling miserable, hopeless, and powerless. That is my presentation for today. Be well, be brilliant, and come back again next time for another installment of Good Grief. Bye for now.